What happens when a beloved television host refuses to back down from asking the hard questions, and a royal guest completely loses his composure on live television? You won't believe what unfolds when Prince Harry sits down with Tamron Hall for what was supposed to be a promotional appearance, only to have it explode into one of the most shocking confrontations in daytime television history. The cameras kept rolling as tensions reached a boiling point. Voices were raised, and accusations flew across the studio floor. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when these two powerhouses clash in real time. Last night's episode of Tamron Hall started like any other, with the host's signature warm smile and welcoming energy as she introduced her guest. Prince Harry had arrived to discuss his latest charitable initiative, but what transpired next would leave viewers absolutely stunned and the internet buzzing for hours afterward. The tension began building almost immediately when Tamron opened with what seemed like an innocent question about Harry's recent public statements regarding his family. Her tone was professional, measured, but there was an underlying sharpness that suggested she wasn't going to accept rehearsed answers. "Prince Harry, you've been quite vocal about your experiences with the royal family," Tamron began, leaning forward slightly in her chair. "But many people are wondering why you continue to speak publicly about private family matters, while simultaneously asking for privacy. How do you reconcile that contradiction?" Harry's jaw visibly tightened, and his response came with an edge that caught everyone off guard. "Tamron, with all due respect, I think that's an oversimplification of a very complex situation. You're sitting there making assumptions about motivations you couldn't possibly understand." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably as Tamron's eyebrows raised slightly. She wasn't backing down. "I'm not making assumptions. I'm asking about public statements you've made. You've written a book, given multiple interviews, appeared on podcasts. These aren't private conversations we're discussing, and I've explained the reasoning behind those decisions countless times." Harry shot back, his voice rising just enough to be noticeable. "But it seems like certain people in the media are determined to twist everything into this narrative that I'm somehow betraying my family by telling my truth." What happened next would become the moment everyone would replay over and over again. Tamron paused, looked directly into Harry's eyes, and delivered a question that would change everything. "Your truth?" she repeated, emphasizing each word. "Prince Harry, when you speak about your truth, are you suggesting that there are multiple versions of reality? Because from where I'm sitting, there's just the truth. And the truth is that you've made millions of dollars talking about your family while they've remained largely silent. How is that not exploitative?" The color drained from Harry's face, and for a moment, the studio fell completely silent. Then, like a dam bursting, his composure shattered entirely. "How dare you?" he said, his voice now unmistakably angry. "You have no idea what I've been through, what my family put me through. You're sitting there in your comfortable studio, making judgments about trauma and pain you could never comprehend." But Tamron wasn't intimidated. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, maintaining perfect eye contact. "I'm not judging your trauma, Prince Harry. I'm questioning your choices about how you've monetized it. There's a difference." The confrontation escalated rapidly from there. Harry's hands began gesturing more animatedly as his voice grew louder. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the kind of treatment that drove us out of that country in the first place. You people in the media, you're all the same. You pretend to care, but really you're just looking for the next gotcha moment." "You people?" Tamron interrupted, her own voice now carrying a steely edge. "Let me be very clear about something, Prince Harry. I am not you people. I am a professional journalist asking legitimate questions that millions of viewers want answered. If you can't handle that kind of scrutiny, then perhaps you shouldn't be making the media rounds." The tension in the room was now palpable. Camera operators were adjusting their positions to capture every moment, and the studio audience sat in stunned silence as they witnessed this royal meltdown happening in real time. Harry's response was swift and cutting. "Professional journalist? Is that what we're calling tabloid-style gotcha questions now? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels more like an ambush than an interview." Tamron's composure remained unshaken, which seemed to infuriate Harry even more. An ambush would be asking you questions without warning. Every topic we're discussing was cleared with your team beforehand. The difference is, I'm not accepting scripted non-answers. My team cleared basic talking points, not this. This interrogation, Harry fired back, his British accent becoming more pronounced as his agitation grew. You're twisting everything I say, looking for ways to make me look bad. I don't need to make you look bad, Prince Harry, Tamron replied coolly. Your own words and actions speak for themselves. I'm simply asking you to explain them. The breaking point came when Tamron posed her most direct question yet. Let me ask you this plainly. Do you feel any responsibility for the pain your public statements have caused your father and brother? Or is your need to tell your truth more important than their feelings? Harry's reaction was immediate and explosive. He leaned forward aggressively, pointing his finger toward Tamron. You have crossed a line. You have absolutely no right to lecture me about my relationships with my family members. None whatsoever. I'm not lecturing you, Tamron responded, her voice remaining steady despite the escalating situation. I'm asking you to take accountability for the consequences of your very public choices. Accountability? Harry's voice cracked with indignation. I've spent my entire adult life being accountable for things that had nothing to do with me. I've been blamed for my parents' marriage falling apart, blamed for my mother's death, blamed for wanting to live my own life. And now, you're sitting there telling me I need to be more accountable? The raw emotion in his voice was undeniable. But Tamron pressed forward. Prince Harry, no one is blaming you for your parents' divorce or your mother's tragic death. But you are responsible for the choices you've made as an adult, including the choice to repeatedly attack your family in public forums. Attack? Harry stood up abruptly from his chair, causing the microphone pack to shift awkwardly. I've shared my experiences. I've talked about the institution, not individuals. But people like you keep twisting it into something it's not. Tamron remained seated, maintaining her professional demeanor even as the situation spiraled. Prince Harry, you literally wrote a book detailing private conversations, private arguments, and private moments with your family members. You've named names and shared intimate details. How is that not personal? Because context matters, Harry shouted, his composure now completely gone. You're taking everything out of context to fit your narrative. Whose narrative? Tamron challenged. I'm using your own words from your own book and your own interviews. These aren't my interpretations. These are your statements. Harry began pacing slightly, his agitation reaching new heights. This is exactly why we left. This is exactly the kind of treatment that made our lives impossible. You're all the same, picking apart everything we say, twisting it, using it against us. We're not all the same, Tamron said firmly. And frankly, that kind of broad generalization is part of the problem. You can't paint all media with the same brush and then expect to be taken seriously when you appear on shows like this. Shows like this? Harry's voice dripped with disdain. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Tamron's response was measured but pointed. It means shows where journalists ask real questions instead of lobbing softballs. Shows where accountability matters more than celebrity comfort. The final straw came when Harry, clearly feeling cornered and increasingly defensive, made a comment that would haunt him. You know what, Tamron? I don't have to sit here and take this from someone who clearly has their own agenda. This isn't journalism. This is character assassination. Tamron's eyes flashed, and for the first time, her professional mask slipped slightly. Character assassination? Prince Harry, I've asked you to explain your own public statements and actions. If that feels like character assassination to you, then maybe the problem isn't with my questions. The problem, Harry said, his voice now shaking with anger, is that people like you make money off of tearing people down. You profit from drama and controversy, and you don't care who gets hurt in the process. People like me? Tamron repeated, her voice now carrying a dangerous edge. You keep saying people like me, and I'm starting to wonder exactly what you mean by that. Harry seemed to realize he was walking into dangerous territory, but his anger carried him forward anyway. I mean people in the media who exploit others for ratings and profit. Don't try to make this about something it's not. I'm not making this about anything, Tamron replied evenly. But your pattern of broad generalizations and defensive attacks when faced with legitimate questions speaks volumes. The confrontation reached its climax when Harry, red-faced and clearly overwhelmed, delivered his final statement. This interview is over. I came here in good faith to talk about important work, And instead I'm being subjected to this attack on my character and my family. No one is attacking your character, Tamron said as Harry began removing his microphone. I'm asking you to defend it. Harry threw his hands up in exasperation. Defend it? Defend it to whom? To someone who's already made up their mind about me? To someone who's clearly more interested in creating controversy than having a real conversation? I'm interested in the truth, Tamron replied simply. If that creates controversy, that's not my fault. Harry's final words before storming off would become the most replayed clip of the entire confrontation. The truth? You wouldn't know the truth if it hit you in the face. You're just another media vulture looking to pick apart anyone who threatens your comfortable little narrative about the royal family. With that, he ripped off his remaining microphone equipment, tossed it onto his chair, and strode toward the exit. The cameras followed his every step as he pushed past surprised production assistants and headed straight for the door. Tamron, still seated in her chair, watched him leave with a mixture of disappointment and resolve. As the studio door slammed shut behind the departing prince, she turned back to the camera and delivered one final statement that would cement this confrontation in television history. Well, she said, her voice steady despite everything that had just unfolded, I guess that answers the question about accountability. The aftermath was immediate and explosive, with social media erupting in debates about who was right, who was wrong, and whether Tamron had gone too far or if Harry had shown his true colors. But in that moment, as the credits began to roll on one of the most dramatic television confrontations in recent memory, one thing was crystal clear. This was a clash that neither participant nor anyone who witnessed it would ever forget.